that sleepest, arise from the dead.
Read the Bible, you'll find out that God's not too happy with what's going on around us.
Redeem the time, because the days are evil.
The Bible has not changed.
Boldly proclaim the restoration and preservation of Christian values in America.
Satan has brainwashed a whole nation.
As goes the church, so goes the nation.
Nobody's convicted of anything anymore.
And now, here's Last Call with your host, B.J. Edwards.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hey, 60 days, something like that, to election, less than 60 days. You're about to listen to 2 hours of opinion and entertainment supplied by Last Call Radio. We're not doctors, lawyers, politicians, professional journalists, nor either one of us hold a doctorate degree in anything. Not that that would make any difference this day and age. Our opinion, of course. We only ask that you not personally and or corporately take our statements or those that we voice from others personal, nor do we recommend that you act on them, although they might very well be facts. But again, that's our opinion. You're not required to listen to, act on, repeat anything that you hear today, nor assume that they are facts, that any information we present is by no means meant to harm or threaten anyone. Got a great show today. Mr. Anderson, I'm hearing noise in the background. Clearing hurdles for dummies. You better get your pencil and paper out, folks, because BJ is going to present some information to you that you need to hear. Coming back from dinner last night, I saw a neighbor's sign, Harris Waltz. Couldn't miss it. Boy, do I have some questions for that individual. And second hour, Americans' Holy War. It might even be a civil war. That's the civil war where we should be concerned about, with Gary Michael Voris. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning. Let's get to the headlines. I know you all enjoy them. This news comes from the Communist Communicator. Dodging the debate would be smart because Kamala isn't. The big lie of skilled migrant workers saving Western economies. I heard the vice president candidate for the Republican Party was asked a question about separating families as they come across the border. Well, when they come across the border, they don't they? They leave their families. North Carolina rejects RFK's request to be taken off the state ballot. This was from your "It's Not My Job" category. The headline reads, "Can Trump stave off the end of the republic?" Folks, that's not his job. Remember the old, that's what job is it anyway? Whose job is it anyway? That's not his job, folks. That's we the people's job. That's us. And we need to get in the game. I think I like this idea. Cornel West proposes creating a COVID-19 Truth Commission, vaccine safety, and utilization panel to restore public health. Here's a good idea. Harley Davidson removes DEI and all woke initiatives. Speaking of DEI, Lowe's alters their DEI policies amid rising public backlash. I went to their corporate site. I wanted to talk to one of their corporate HR folks, and it looked a little curious when I saw it. Lowe's is a leading home improvement retailer, by the way. They recently decided to scale back some of the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. This move aligns the company with other large corporations that are rethinking policies designed to enhance ethnic and racial diversity. According to an internal memo obtained by Reuters on August 21st, Lowe's will stop participating in surveys conducted by the Human Rights Campaign, a group that advocates for LGBTQ and rights. Additionally, the company plans to consolidate its various employee resource groups which were previously organized to support diverse employee communities under one single unified organization. The memo also states that Lowe's will no longer sponsor or take part in community events such as fairs, festivals, etc. Despite these adjustments, Lowe's maintains that its dedicated employees remains unchanged, emphasizing this comment in the memo. They're focusing on their work as versus social manipulation. The yin and the yang category. Ukrainian military shoots down its own F-16 fighter jet provided by the U.S. earlier this year. Ukraine's Patriot anti-aircraft missile took down one Ukraine's own F-16 fighter jets this week, what the media is calling a friendly fire incident. It's not even been a full year since Ukraine's Western backers sent the F-16 as a gift. A word from the Yang Department. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan meets with Xi Jinping as Biden works to normalize relations with China. Look, on November 5th, we may be invaded by communists at the highest levels. And this from the good for them category, Huntington Beach, California, to file lawsuit against Newsom's law mandating school districts conceal kids' gender identity from parents. We'll get into a little bit of public schools and parents here shortly. Tim Walz's entire family endorses Trump. I also think I saw something where Walz's dog even endorsed Trump. Roof, roof. What else we got here, BJ? Deja vu. This is an oldie but a goodie. Former Labor Secretary Robert Reich urges global regulators to arrest Elon Musk. Illegal immigrants in California attempt to overtake school buses filled with children. Not going to happen category. GOP looked to tie ID voting bill into government funding bill. Yak, 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 but yet they never do anything. Here's an oldie but a goodie. Biden administration warns of Russia interfering in election. And here's a BJ Explains category. The Sopranos' Dre De Matteo explains why celebs fall from the left's false Kamala change messages. Of course they do. And that's because most celebs live in an imaginary world most of the time. So you should actually expect this. Here's a scary thought. Do you remember that recent internet outage? Kash Patel warns a potential blackout or attack of power structure during election cycle. So are we going to have an election, Mr. Anderson? What do you think? I lost you. Maybe bring you back. Why don't you pop in there, Mr. Anderson? We're going to have, or Norm, you can come in. Are we going to have an election November 5th? Are we going to have a civil war after that? What do you think, guys?
All I'm getting is, did you start the show with what in the world's going on?
Yeah. No. That's last week's.
9/7?
Last week was what in the world's going on.
Yeah, maybe I clicked on
Yeah.
today. I got what's showing up.
Yep, got it.
9/7.
Okay. I think we're on then. So guys, what do you think? November 5th, we had maybe a little production difficulties. Not surprising, but
yes, we are. I had trouble connecting with Rumble. It looks like I'm still having trouble. I don't know what's going on. Trying to fix the problem. That's why I disappeared.
Okay.
Getting a note from not coming up on Rumble. I don't know what the issue is right now. We are live on YouTube uniquely. That doesn't usually happen for us, but if you look for the BJ Edwards channel on YouTube, of course, if you're not yeah, I don't know where you'd be watching this from. And our Minuteman site, we're live there also.
Okay.
But I'm having trouble connecting with Rumble. I'm gonna go back. I'll disappear again for a minute. Yeah, your question about an election, that's up in the air, isn't it?
Yeah. There's all kinds. The pursuit in Ohio, they're pursuing election integrity, and there's new accusations of what might be happening. Both sides, regardless of, I mean, they have excuses now. Both sides have excuses for if they don't win, why they didn't win. It was an unfair election. We're trying to set that up, and Norm and I and Mr. Hayes are working to try to get that settled down a little bit, simmer down a little bit. Norm, while we're waiting to get on, you got any updates in terms of your projects in Kentucky?
Well, sure. As you know, I'm trying to get leaders of Congress, the godly ones, to give us biblical solutions to our issues and to sign a pledge that to follow biblical guidelines in all their legislation. And Congressman Comer felt like he could not give it justice with all he's got going on, so he referred me to Tim Burchard. And Congressman Burchard's office has our material. I've been assured that he will give me a call here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm hopeful about that. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, are we going to try to get on? Do you know whether we're on or what's going on? Because Rumble's our key.
Working on it. I don't.
Okay.
This is a new problem I haven't had before.
Yeah, I saw something when I started to go to the last call intro. Something popped up, said we're not on. I didn't get a chance to read what it was. I thought it was probably YouTube.
YouTube is working. I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, I got to disappear again. Okay. I got to work on this.
Thursday this week, I attended a Zoom meeting, and it was about public schools and how to play defense. And folks, that is the problem that we have. We're always playing on defense. Somebody recommended in the meeting that parents and family members volunteer in school buildings. That's offense, and that's a good idea. Praying together at home as a family, that's good. Start or join, local neighborhood support group. I attended school board meetings for over 10 years and ran for the school board at the end of that. And what I saw in that meeting is that if anybody from the public, and generally they would attend the meeting and speak, they were always complaining about what was going on. And very seldom, if at all, would you see any proactive actions. And by the way, while these people were speaking at the school board meetings, the union members in the back of me were just giggling and laughing and making fun of them. And folks, the unions, not the school board, not the superintendent, not the teachers, run the schools. They run the schools. And I kind of made some positive, proactive suggestions to the group. They were talking about books in school and how parents can opt out of this and that and the other, which isn't a bad idea, okay? But that's still playing defense. A good offensive play with regards to books is this. Offer to give the school library books like Marxism and Freedom, From Queer to Christ, the Bible Code, and Maybe He's Not Gay by our good friend Linda Harvey. And of course, you're going to get, whoa, wait a minute. Separation of church and state, right? In 1961, the Supreme Court declared that secular humanism, which is all this is about, secular humanism, non-Christian humanism, secular humanism as a religion. So they're either going to let all religions in, including Christianity. If you let secular humanism, you got to let Christianity in. So snuff out that argument before it ever starts. What they're presenting is a religion. They have faith in that and they can't prove it. Right? Here's some other books. Original Intent, America's God and Country, 5,000 Year Leap, The Origin of the Bible, Bonhoeffer, by Eric McTassis, and Understanding the Times. Okay, that's for the book issue. Now, another proactive way to do this, please, 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 start putting them on defense and let them spend all their time trying to generate a defense, because if they're busy playing defense, they're not going to be offense. You understand that? Time is limited. We spend most of our time playing defense. They spend most of their time playing offense. Who's going to win? Don't you have to score to win the ball game? Well, yeah, you can score on defense. Yeah. But I think most, if not all, games are won by the offensive team scoring higher than the other team's offense. We need to get on the proactive end, playing offense. Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, we're on Rumble again, but the link that we sent out earlier won't work. So you just got to go to our channel and find the live broadcast there.
How do they get to the channel? Well, they can't hear this.
That's the other problem, isn't it? Unless you're listening on another channel, and you want to go back to Rumble, I don't know what else we can do at this point.
Okay.
Maybe I can send that the new link out to the people you sent it to earlier.
Okay.
I'll try and do that. Again, I'll disappear.
Is a guest link going to be okay? Or you don't know?
Oh, for the StreamYard, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't change. It's a Rumble. It's a Rumble link that's a problem.
Okay.
I'll run our break video real quick.
Okay.
It's time for a break.
All right, sir.
If you wanted me to run that, and then
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to disappear.
Go ahead.
Will be charged with murder as an adult. Aaron Katursky is standing by with the very latest on the investigation. But first, Faith Abube starts us off on the scene there at the high school in Georgia. Good morning, Faith.
Good morning to you, Robin. Flags here on campus were flying at half-staff this morning. This community just now beginning to process the horrific events that happened inside this high school behind me. Overnight, officials reassuring this community that there was only one shooter and that teenage suspect remains in custody this morning.
This morning, an urgent investigation underway after police say a 14-year-old went on a shooting rampage inside a Georgia high school, killing 2 fellow students, 2 teachers, and injuring 9 others.
I never imagined that I would be speaking to the media in my career over something that happened today, the pure evil that happened today.
Officials identifying the suspect as Colt Gray, a student at the school.
He will be charged with murder and he will be tried as an adult.
This student, Lila, told CNN the shooter was in her math class. She says he abruptly left the class and then tried to get back inside.
They lock automatically, so you have to be let in to come back into our classroom. So I think he wanted to come to us first to shoot us class. He turns to the classroom to what would have been my right, and he just starts to shoot, and you hear like about 10 to 15 rounds back to back. He never really talked. He was pretty quiet. He wasn't there most times. Either he just didn't come to school or he just would skip class. But even when he would have talked, it was one-word answers or just short statements.
Police say calls of an active shooter started coming in around 10:20 Tuesday morning.
What is happening to the high school?
I don't know. Within minutes, they were on campus helping the school resource officers already at the scene. Officers finding the suspect with an AR-15 style rifle. They say he surrendered without incident.
The shooter quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer-involved shooting. He gave up, got on the ground.
In this video from our affiliate WSB, police seen investigating the alleged shooter's house for evidence. Authorities identifying the victims as 14-year-old students Mason Shammerhorn and Christian Angulo, teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Eremy. Senior Fabian Williford was in class when he heard the first round of gunshots.
The guns sound like balloon popping, but like 10 times louder.
Sophomore Alexandra Romero filming this video from inside her classroom. Officers leading her class to safety.
Just move with purpose, come on.
I saw like my math teacher, and he was all covered. I saw blood everywhere.
10th grade world history teacher Stephen Cramble protecting roughly 28 students when his class was notified they were on a hard lockdown.
There was a second of like, in my head, I just felt death like cross my mind. Where there was a moment where I'm like, I might die today.
11th grader Henry Vanderwalt frantically texting his mother. I think there's a school shooting. We heard gunshots and the police shouting. We're all in hard lockdown. Moments later, texting, I love you. Gwendolyn Cook rushing to the football field where the students were safely gathering, looking for her grandkids, alongside hundreds of other frantic parents.
Everybody came to get their children.
Overnight, an emotional vigil.
We are praying for you and for our community.
A heartbroken community gathering together amid tragedy.
And Michael, a bit of good news here this morning. Officials telling us that all 9 victims who were injured will not only survive, but they will recover well. Meantime, the school is closed for the rest of the week as investigators try to figure out the motive.
Sorry about the technical issues this morning. I'm sorry about that. But I did want to talk about this this shooting and some of the things that really perked my attention is that the sheriff that you saw in that picture in another clip made it an important point to say that they are a loving community. Why would he say that? Why would he make love the issue here? There's a group that makes love an issue too. Just saying. Something that really, and if I could bring James Bond in if he's listening, but I want Norm's opinion on this too. I'm going to bring Roger in. I'm sorry, James in. James, I have a question for you. The father, and we're talking about the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
The father was arrested, and I think I find that very, very interesting from a legal standpoint. This is setting some kind of a precedent, is it not?
Well, can you hear me, Jim?
Yeah.
Well, 2 things. One is, I think the powers that be wanted to show that we're doing something. Okay, we're doing something. Now, we don't know how much investigation was going on with this family prior to the incident, to the whole shooting. So they may have a lot more on them than we know, and boom, they just acted too late. But I think the big day, but then this loving thing, that's starting to come out. This kid may have been in transition into the transgender lifestyle, sodomite lifestyle, whatever. But he's in some transition. So that the idea of it's a loving community, we accept everybody. We love everybody. We didn't do anything to get him worked up. It ain't our fault. But so that's one. But I think the second thing is the concept of a parent being responsible for the actions of a child to such an extent that movement is very quickly arresting the parent. Okay. Now, we don't have all the details, and we've got to be careful. It's a terrible thing that took place. All of that's very important to always be in the foundation of any discussion. But I think the idea that a parent within, 12 hours is arrested for the actions of their child, that's moving pretty fast.
It is. And I just wonder whether this is not part of the LGBTQ community forcing something like this to happen And again, Roger, it have to be some extreme circumstances, because this sets a precedent. There's two things in mind that I have in mind. Number one is the First Amendment rights, and number two is the Second Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. If this father is going to be held accountable because he bought his son a gun, and the next time we go to buy a gun, what's going to happen? There's going to be some paperwork there that wasn't there before.
Or what about a butcher knife? Or,
Well,
one can argue giving the kid a car when he's 16 is,
exactly. And they end up killing somebody, running over somebody. Yeah, exactly. This is dangerous territory, very dangerous territory. And again, I'm the family guy. And I believe the father should be the authority in the family.
Mm-hmm.
But to align this with the actions of a son, Cain and Abel, right?
Yeah.
So Cain slew Abel. So we go after the father as well, right?
Yeah. We don't know all the facts, and there's some discussion out there that I said we don't know all the facts, and there's some discussion out there that Dad bought him a gun for his 14th birthday. I think during most of the Wild Wild West conquering, kids at 12 and 14 were getting guns bought for them all the time. It's
if your son, you think your son is trying to transition and you want him to be more male macho, right? Buy him a gun. Is that not one of the options?
It would enter my thinking. Would I do it? It would enter my thinking.
Okay.
So,
thanks, Roger.
You're welcome.
The registration, by the way, could include how many children do you have and what are their ages, and that you make a promissory statement. Again, a legal statement that ties you to that gun and anything that happens to that gun in your family. If your son gets the gun, or your daughter, and they give that gun to a neighbor, the neighbor commits something, then what? Huh? We'll get the son or the daughter and the father, or maybe the mother. And I was watching the father in the courtroom, and he was obviously distraught. He was moving back and forth. And I can't imagine, your son, your child has killed somebody, and that alone is pretty stressful. And then they have to face a court and jail time and spend the money on a lawyer. This is going to get very, very interesting. We are setting a very, very, very interesting precedent here, and I don't think we're going to like the results. I really don't. Norm, any comments?
Well, I do, but I want to talk about the shooter.
Okay.
I'm totally convinced that these shooters can be identified in the first and second grade.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. What you're going to see out of these shooters is a lot of rejection. They've been told, whether directly or indirectly, that they're not important, and that's why kids become loners. So it's within us to want to reach out to others and be a part and to play and those things. But you'll see, like in the first and second grade, you remember choosing up teams, as kids, and you might have that kid that say, "Oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to play. I'm going home." It's not that they don't want to play. They don't want to be chosen last. They don't want to be rejected. And so these kids, again, could be identified in the first and second grades. And then if teachers would begin to reach out and see that there's a problem, kids don't withdraw and become loners and for no reason at all, and it's all in their upbringing. And just like with myself, my dad was a great man, a pastor, but I heard a lot of times, "Son, how many times am I going to have to show you how to do that?" And, just that one statement alone, I had zero confidence in my abilities, to do anything. And so it took me a while, to get over that, in the relationship with the Lord, that, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens. But it's in the upbringing. It's back to the family. And when the family does not God put this need for love within us, and it's the parents' role and responsibility to love their kids unconditionally, so that they know they're special and that they have worth. But no, it's back to the family and the upbringing.
I get it, but as a family, when you stop educating your child and you turn that over to a complete stranger, here's one of the things, and then we'll take a break, Mr. Anderson, and we'll talk about election, family, and friends, and we're going to talk about the church and church leadership and what do we do, how do we handle that, because they could be such a big factor in turning things around in this situation as well. But we send our children into institutions, and come on, let's be honest here, they are programming our children. They tell our children that life has no meaning. They teach evolution as fact. Life has no meaning. That's foundational, folks. Morals are relative, multiculturalism and diversity. I'm okay, you're okay, everything's okay. Again, life has no meaning. You do whatever you want to do because it's just who you are. That's what you were born into. And then there is no God. Okay, they make sure that there is no God. Man, not God, is the measure of all things. So life has no meaning. There's no morals, and you can make your own decisions. And then the state is your daddy. They tell children that they're entitled to feel good. That's what they're entitled to do. So you put those four together, and I made this statement a long time ago after an event in Colorado that I'm not surprised that more school shootings don't happen than do happen. This doesn't surprise me at all, and there will be more as long as we continue, number one, to allow the breakup of the family, 52% divorce rate. Okay, you're putting a child in a very, very bad situation. Men aren't taking leadership in the family. I could go on, but the family situation, and then you have these institutions, and you have the press, and you have politicians that are all moving towards this secular humanist nirvana. And once man takes over, remember the Garden of Eden, I'll take it from here, God. Thanks for all the creation. Thanks for the perfection. We'll just take it from here. Well, look what's happened. Look what happened in a school and what's going to happen again. God help us. God help us if that cackling witch gets into office. Did we just lose YouTube? BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Not.
Hi, I'm back.
Okay. This past weekend, I was in West Virginia and spoke at a festival, Natural Family Festival down there. Thanks, Butch Paul and Phil Hudock. Appreciate all you guys did. The mayor of Summersville was also in attendance, but I didn't get a chance to go to church. I was just too worn out. So I watched a couple church services on YouTube. And the first service, the group sang for over an hour. I don't even know what the service was about, okay? The second was, they were talking about children and how children have been on a mission trip. When they come back in the airport, the children were wanting to give Bible verses to complete strangers and get along and don't offend anybody, yada, yada, yada. Sing praises to God. And in all things, be sure to obey the 11th commandment, thou shalt not offend. To win the battle that we're waging right now, folks, the church is going to have to get engaged in the culture. Some, very few, are doing so, but they need to get engaged in the culture. How do we do that? How do you do that with your church leadership? I'm going to make a recommendation here. Get that pen and paper out, okay? You need to go to your church leaders. Mr. Anderson, mute yourself. I think we're getting some noise from your end. What we need to do is ask the pastor, ask the church leaders what they see as the biggest problem in America. And folks, let me tell you what the biggest problem in America is, and this is where you have to go. We are an amoral and unjust nation. Think of the J6ers. Think of the former president of the United States. Think about in a local community when you didn't wear a mask and how you were treated. Think of the bullying that goes on in our schools because you don't accept sodomy. Think about everything that's going on out there. And in a bizarre world where right is wrong and wrong is right, you have a moral problem. And when you have a moral problem, you're going to have an unjust nation. So let's get to the point where we can admit that we're an amoral and unjust nation. So what's the resolution to this? Again, you're talking to your pastor. Actually, you'd be talking to anybody, but the resolution is going to be the same. We need to make America a Christian nation again. We need to make America a Christian nation again. How do we do that? Well, there are some action steps to take, but you also have to think about what the obstacles are as well, because you have to overcome the obstacles. The first thing you're going to hear, guarantee you, is prayer. Now, please, please, please do not get me wrong. Prayer is important. Prayer is critical, but prayer is not an excuse. When you get into the Bible, you see a lot of what? Action figures, don't you? Pray before they go, but they're still action figures. Think about all the action figures in the Bible. They were doing, folks. And the Bible even talks about not doing. And another thing with regards to prayer is God is a just God. When he set up the world, the universe, he created laws. I'll call them natural laws, spiritual and physical. And those are guardrails for our protection. And when we step outside of those laws, you're going to get your toes stepped on. You got to bring your foot back in, or you can stay out there and just take a walloping. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to happen right away, but it is going to happen. Look what we have allowed to happen. Not to do is to do. Look what we have allowed to happen as Christians. Look at we have gay marriage. We have that divorce rate. Men aren't leaders in the family. If there is a family there, we could go on and on and on about all the problems. We have corrupt politicians. They aren't public servants. They're serving themselves. We have a deep state, which looks like it's going to get even deeper. Now, you can say, well, this person, that person, Illuminati, et cetera, all well and good, okay? But God is in control, and Satan is our enemy. He does have minions that work for him, but he is the enemy. So we have to think in terms of prayer as a covering, but don't tie God's hands. See, those natural laws I spoke of, he is perfect. He will not break those. He may delay them, but he won't break them. So there's payment coming already. And I'm not talking about the second coming. I'm talking about a readjustment. And if we don't readjust, then we're definitely going to get that second coming fairly soon. So what are the solutions? You have to identify what the problem is: amoral, unjust society. Goal was to make America a Christian nation again. What are the obstacles? Can we continue to change things if the public schools are still indoctrinating our children? Can we continue to try to change things when we elect public servants who we know are trying to take our religious freedoms away, as well as our freedoms, period, and our money? Again, think of the J6ers. I've got a good friend, was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, never went into the building. He spent $100,000 to $200,000, maybe even more, on lawyers. And to save himself, well, the lawyers, what he paid the lawyers just didn't help him at all. He could be phasing 8 years, 10 years on trumped up charges. Excuse you, and double entendre there. But I just want you to think about that, okay? We are, to your pastors, to your church leaders, to a Christian leader in your neighborhood, identify the problem. It is, we are an amoral and unjust nation. As Christians, is it not our job to rectify that? Who else knows better? To do that, what are the obstacles? Identify the obstacles in your particular area or your particular state and the nation in general. Always recommend that you go local. The missus and I went out to dinner yesterday evening, and going out on the we live in a kind of hillside, and there's like acre lots, and on the 1 acre lots, as we're leaving, right hand side, you could see a poster, Harris Waltz, and just shake my head. But you can't miss it from the road, coming and going. So what am I going to say to my neighbor when I run across him, when I'm out walking? What are you going to say to him? Now, keep in mind, these are neighbors. And in this case, a neighbor that I really don't know. But one of the things that I'm thinking of is saying, hey, I saw the sign in your yard. And if he doesn't say anything, I'm going to say, very interesting. And hopefully that'll lead to a conversation. And one of the things in the conversation I'm going to be able to say to him is, how much experience do you have in politics? Yeah, you can ask that question. Somebody like myself can really ask that question, because I spent a lot of time at school board meetings, a lot of time at city council meetings, a lot of time trying to get people elected to office. In my close to 40 years experience, I've done an awful lot. But when I ask this individual how much experience they have, they're going to say very little, if any. And maybe that's where you leave the conversation, or maybe there'll be another opening. You know, there are people that design 5G towers. They have mechanical engineering degrees. I don't have any mechanical engineering degree. I don't have any experience in designing towers. But if I went up to that individual and I said, you know what? I think that tower ought to look like, what should he say to me? How do you know that? Where did you get that information? And how do you know that? Experience is the best teacher, folks. We have people that are listening to a one-sided presentation of events in America. And unless they have experience, they really don't know the right thing to do. Yeah. who is a natural born citizen, the question of birthright citizenship. They don't even know that. Kamala Harris, if you follow the Constitution, and if you listen to our show, is not qualified to be president of the United States at all. Open for ideas, folks. Norm, Kevin, thoughts? Or have I
looking for lively people?
Yeah.
Well, good news is we are on Rumble and people have found us, so that's good news.
Okay.
That's a key point to me, is understanding our Constitution and who we are as a people. I'm hearing now the term cultural Christian.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's come into play in our current election. I don't know how that's going. Elon Musk is one who claims to be a cultural Christian. I'm not ready to define that yet, but I'm interested in what that means and who these are. And I guess what that does mean to me is what you said earlier about make America Christian again.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at our founders and the wisdom they had, always impresses me big time, because they were dealing with many different groups of people and trying to come to a conclusion of how to maintain morality in this nation.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't come out and say that until afterwards. There's a quote I could throw up here real quick from John Adams, I believe. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to govern of any other. So I think this is kind of why the cultural Christians are starting to come out. They're recognizing the need for the kind of values and morals that Christianity brings to a people. Whether they agree with the idea of Christianity as a whole, they even Richard Dawkins has come out with this. He would hate to see our morality, our Christian morality, go away. He doesn't believe in God, he says, but he likes the values that God-believing people have brought. So I think that this kind of thing is something that we need to address with our friends and neighbors and even our pastors.
And you have to address them. Not to do is to do. If you let it go, you're going to encourage that behavior. Most of you have had children. If you let them do what they want to do and you don't say anything about it, guess what's going to happen? They're going to take it to the next level. Before we go to break, there's something I wanted to mention, is that there's a lot of talk about election integrity. Okay. Here's what I'm going to recommend to all my conservative Christian friends. When you go to the polls, wear something that's red. Okay. And if we get this going, wearing something that's red, if you see at the polls 60% of the people wearing red, you can see that. You see who's voting. Yet that candidate loses, to say the presidential election, by a 60-40 margin. What are you going to think? Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I was at the polls. I saw all the red. This doesn't make sense to me. Just a thought. Well, Norm will get you in after the break. We're going to take a break, Mr. Anderson, if you would. BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call. Hang in for the second hour. Gary Michael Voris, you're going to love this conversation.
Faith, discussion, and so much more. Last Call with BJ Edwards.
I think Norm may want to comment. I'll bring him in, Mr. Anderson. No, you can. Before you do that, one other thing. When you get into these conversations with non-conservatives and you're going to start talking about rights, the thing that's going to pop up immediately is abortion rights. Okay? And here's the answer to the question. I'm going to thank the missus for this. The answer to that question is, I draw the line, the moral line, at life. You draw the moral line at life, and let the conversation proceed from there. Go ahead, Norm, please.
Well, I believe that the American people are hungry for some spiritual answers. We know that still 80-something% of the American people believe in God. And if you believe in God, you also believe in prayer. And, the thing that I find extremely funny is even the atheist is using God's Bible as a guide in all their decisions.
Yeah.
And choosing their friends and where they'll work and who they'll marry. I mean, they all want everybody else to keep God's 10 commandments. They don't want a friend that'll lie and steal from them, and they don't want to invest their money with a company that puts out false earnings reports or marry somebody that they know is going to be sleeping around on them. Everybody wants everybody else to keep God's 10 commandments. And again, everybody's using them every day. So I just find that really funny.
Yeah, that's a great point. And when you talk about why Christian, why a Christian nation, the founders talk about the laws of nature and nature's God. And folks, that's what they built their Constitution on. That was their foundation for this. It doesn't work, like the quote said, without this. And let me put this in secular human terms. Let me speak in tongues here. The laws of nature and nature's God are the bond that holds all nations together. When not properly applied, which is what you were talking about, Norm, when not properly applied or simply ignored, nations quickly become unglued. When you have conversations with folks and you start bringing up Jesus Christ in the Bible, boom, bang, conversation's over with, eyes roll, they're gone. But when you start talking about natural laws, they don't know how to defend that because it's something that they can see, feel, sense. They can't deny natural laws. A child needs a mother and a father. That is a natural, spiritual law. And when you break it, go to the prison systems. Talk to the prisoners about their family life. You know what you're going to hear. Go ahead, Norm. Sorry.
No, that's no, I agree. I totally agree. Again, it's all on the family. And, and I used to ask parents that come in, having trouble with a child. And I said, what did you expect to happen when you turned them over to the ungodly to train? They just kind of look at you like, well, I never thought about that,
Yeah.
Because that's, God in Deuteronomy chapter 6 gave clear instructions to the family and, to train their kids, and if parents train their kids in the relationship that God wanted with his children and in God's ways, when they would be equipped to recognize the evil and not go for it. But when you don't have that base structure to understand truth, then they'll believe anything. And as I said over and over, as we removed our source of truth, the Bible, in back in the 60s, and when you remove your source of truth, then you begin to move toward extremes. And how many of us would have thought that 10 years ago that we would be dissecting babies and selling their baby parts? And we've even moved beyond that to where we're, cutting off body parts of our young kids. in this transgender. And there's going to be something else more evil than this. I can't imagine what it's going to be. But we move from one extreme to something more extreme. And that's a result of getting away from truth.
Yep. You can't satisfy yourself in this human condition when we try to exit yourself from the spiritual laws. You can never fill that gap. Mm-hmm. Never fill it. You can try to fill it with drugs, sex, sports. Doesn't make any difference. You cannot fill that spiritual vacuum that you self-create. And you have to get back to that, which is going to be very difficult. First of all, you have to admit that you were wrong. That's going to be difficult. I think, Mr. Anderson, we have a 2-minute warning. And how long is that this morning? I don't want to miss that. And just as we're reviewing, first of all, stop playing defense, folks. Start thinking the Natural Family Month, Mother's Day to Father's Day, an offensive move. Talk to candidates who are running for office. What do they think about the natural family? Would they support a law that would create a protection for the natural family? Start with that. Talk to your pastors. Tell them, help get us back to where we need to get to. Mr. Anderson, you got a 2-minute warning for us?
With hope aboard the Mayflower, we anchored on this land, dreaming of freedom and independence. We built this nation. Forever great America. God bless all the people. God bless America. For freedom and equality, Lincoln's passion. For courage against invaders, Roosevelt's action. For unity and service, Kennedy's vision. For a beautiful dream, King's mission. For world peace, Reagan's smile. New divisions and conflicts arise. Threats of violence and crime grow. Economic struggles make life hard. Let's cherish each other and unite in love. We've done it before, and we can do it now. Inherit the wisdom and courage of our ancestors. Let's continue with love and cooperation. Open the future together, grow the great dream. Make America greater and brighter. Forever great America. God bless all the people. God bless America. For freedom and equality, Lincoln's passion. For courage against invaders, Roosevelt's action. For unity and service, Kennedy's vision. For a beautiful dream, King's mission. For world peace, Reagan's smile. New divisions and conflicts arise. Threats of violence and crime grow. Economic struggles make life hard. Let's cherish each other and unite in love. We've done it before, and we can do it now. Inherit the wisdom and courage of our ancestors. Let's continue with love and cooperation. Open the future together, grow the great dream. Make America greater and brighter. Forever great America. God bless all the people. God bless America.
keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
Number 2, we are back. That was Donald Trump's son, by the way, that took us out of the first hour. Coming into the second hour, Gary Michael Voris is a 40-year Emmy Award-winning political news veteran, currently the host of In Depth at Souls and Liberty, a Catholic, patriotic, conservative news outlet. Mr. Voris holds an undergraduate with a major in communications and a minor in history from the University of Notre Dame, as well as a graduate degree cum laude from the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. Now, as an ex-headhunter with 3+ decades experience in Christian activism, it's his work experience that I find capturing, which we'll get into directly. But for now, why don't you bring him on, Mr. Anderson? Gary Michael Voris, welcome to Last Call, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on, man. God bless you for all of your work and your love of country and the faith and our Lord, and all your viewers also who are obviously watching because they're of the same mind. God bless you all.
Yeah, it's interesting, Gary, that we I got bit by the righteous bug about 37 years ago, and I've never been the same since. And I knew there was a problem, but I didn't know quite how to resolve it. And I first tried to get the right politicians elected to office. And I did that for a decade or so. And you know how that worked out, right? And then I went, as goes the church, so goes the nation. So I went to our church leadership, the pastors. And I said, hey, we got a problem here. Help us resolve this issue. Take the leadership role here. Start talking to your conversations and get them in the game. Well, you know how that worked out, right?
Oh, I know well how that worked out. Yes.
And then I'm back home with the family, if you will. And as goes the family, so goes the nation. As goes the family, so goes the church. As goes the church, so goes the nation. The family, to me, just you understand where I'm coming from, is the key. It is broken. It is a mess. Yep. So, Gary, I got bit by the righteous bug about 37 years ago. When did you engage the culture here? When did you start swimming upstream and making friends?
Oh, loads of friends.
Yeah.
It's a little, I'm not sure. It was just sort of a gradual process. I was, born into a Catholic family. My father was a convert from being a Nazarene. My mom was Irish Catholic, but raised in England. So I always sort of grew up in the Catholic faith. I was an altar boy and all of that stuff. And, went to Catholic school, everything. So I've always just sort of been kind of a mindset. And when I got into news, journalism, TV news journalism, I was a producer and then a reporter and an anchor and the whole, check all those boxes from the TV news world. And I noticed early on, my first job was at CBS News in New York in 1983. I graduated from Notre Dame in '83. Go Irish, by the way. And and I got my job at CBS News. It was just kind of a broadcast associate, kind of running around doing little errands sort of thing. But I was still in the environment. And, I thought to myself, I should say the thought kind of came into my head, there's a lot of guys who are like, kind of liberal, but that's it. Today, they'd be like conservative Republicans. And I just sort of in that industry came to see gradually that, this is just sort of how it is. My watershed moment for the industry was when we were covering I'd gone to different TV stations and whatever around the country, and I wound up at the time what was the CBS affiliate in Detroit, WKBK. It's now the Fox affiliate. It was one of those switchovers in the summer of '95, and I was in the newsroom. There were probably about 70 or 80 people, cameramen, reporters, producers, anchors, everybody was in the newsroom, and we were watching the handing down of the decision in Planned Parenthood versus Casey in 1992 and the end of June in '92. And most people don't know it. If you haven't been in a newsroom before, why would you? But you always have the monitors on across the wall of all the competition as well. So you can just sort of glance up and see, are we missing anything? And every TV station in the country has that. And so we're sitting here watching, and all of this is a big deal. I mean, this was probably got more attention than Obergefell did. Remember how big Obergefell was on the steps of the Supreme Court for the covering of that. And all the monitors are on in the newsroom, and everybody's watching it. And all of a sudden they do, you know, the intern run, it's called, where they come running around the backside of the Supreme Court, running down the stairs and handing the opinion, the ruling down to the reporters. Well, the reporter for CBS National, the Supreme Court reporter, was Rita Braver, and she did what she knows she needed to do, which was go to the end of the opinion. It was a pretty lengthy opinion, and she went down to the end of it, and it was a 5-4 ruling, because maybe some of your older viewers will remember, you know, Sandra Day O'Connor had been put on the court by Reagan a few years earlier, and she was kind of the big question mark. You know, she's conservative, Republican appointee from Arizona, and, you know, out west, and, you know, where it's all solid values and all that sort of stuff. And everybody was kind of holding their breath on this. They didn't really know. And she was the swing vote. And it was 5-4 with her siding with the pro-aborts on the court. And when Rita Braver said on the air, and we were watching in the newsroom in Detroit, so the standard has changed from the trimester to undue burden, but the central holding that there's a constitutional right to an abortion has been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court on this 5-4 vote. The newsroom, again, 70, 80 people in there, like broke out in cheers. I mean, loud, like, you know, their team won the game, and they're high-fiving each other, and a few of them were hugging and crying and, you know, carrying on, and, you know, oh my gosh, and the whole bit. My desk happened to be a little bit away from where that was, maybe, I don't know, 20 feet or so. And there were a couple other guys scattered around because of where our desk locations were, but everybody was gathered around those monitors for the most part. I was blown away. That was my first, like, holy crap moment. You know, so it was 1992. I was 31 years old. And I was like, this is, I'm not sure I fit in this. And that was kind of, I guess I would say, if there was like a moment for me, that would have been it. You know, it was the moment to kind of declare, are you cheering this decision, or are you, you know, crying over it here?
Yeah.
And, you know, that was the one that kept, that was the first major challenge to Roe v. Wade. In 19 years. I mean, a whole generation had gone by, and the next generation changes the language on what the legal burden is, but keeps the holding that, you know, you can still kill your children. So I was like, wow, this is very different. And it wasn't shortly after that I began to really plug into, I mean, yeah, there's going to be liberals where you go in a workplace. What really struck me, and I call them liberals now because back then I guess they were liberals. You know, today's version of them are straight up communists. But I was overwhelmed sort of by the degree, by the number,
the enthusiasm
of people in the industry, and the enthusiasm for like killing a child, you know, disguised as women's rights and stuff. It was the number and the intensity of it that really kind of popped. I knew there were people in there who supported abortion. I mean, you know, you're in a workplace and it's news, and, you know, we had very stringent requirements, editorial requirements whenever we were reporting on anything related to abortion at all, whether we were repeating national headlines or doing some sort of local story in Detroit or whatever. And it was pretty standard throughout the industry. If you got a soundbite with a pro-abort, you had to also get a soundbite with a pro-lifer. And if you got two, you had to get two. And stations didn't want to deal with it. You know, the phone calls from either side, you're favoring them, you're favoring this. So they kept it as balanced as they possibly could on the on-air presentation. And, you know, it's just not something I'm walking around thinking about every day. I've got all kinds of stories I'm doing, crimes and child abductions and, you know, fires and police shootings and everything. So it's not like I'm like, oh, what's going on with this story today? But yeah, that I was blown away by the volume, just the cheering and the intensity of it really kind of opened my eyes. I had no idea that there were probably altogether probably about 100 people that worked in the news department at that station in Detroit. And at the time, Detroit was still a pretty big market. It was in the top 10. I think it was number 8 in the country as far as the size of the markets, like New York's number 1, LA's number 2, that sort of thing. Detroit was number 8. It's still a pretty big TV market at the time. And there was 100 people. And I had no idea that probably 90 of the people that I worked right alongside every day were enthusiastically in support of child killing. I mean, hugging and cheering and high-fiving and slamming and crying and, and pumping fists in the air and everything else. And I thought, dear God, this isn't me. And I obviously stayed at my job for a while, as you mentioned, and the intro. I went on to win a few Emmys and Associated Press awards and things like that. I was good at what I did as far as being a news guy, and I'd always kind of been a news guy even since I was a kid. I was the nerd in the library who was reading the newspaper. And had there been internet back then, I probably would never have left my seat, because I read all of this stuff every day for hours and hours. I'd wake up, read it, go to bed, read it. In between various times of the day, I'm reading it. And but yeah, I thought, wow. And so once I kind of grasped that this industry, this institution has been taken over, I don't know that I necessarily extrapolated it to the whole country, to the whole wide industry. But it didn't take me very long after that when I was watching the national reporting on it. I'm like, oh, this whole industry is in favor of all of this. There's no, they would tell sympathetic stories of, oh, this poor woman can't kill her child, and and she can't afford another one, and you see those constant stories, and the mean Christians who want to force her to give birth, and you'd see those sorts of things, but but now, I mean, all the cards are on the table right now. And so,
Gary,
I left that industry in about 1998 because I just didn't feel simpatico with it philosophically at all.
He who controls the information controls the world. And from where you were
coming, who rocks the cradle.
Yeah, that too. You want to talk about family? We're going to be here a while. We have. I'm a little older than you are, so I grew up in an era where if it feels good, do it. Okay, and we started that whole movement, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now for so long, because I helped start this insanity with the sexual revolution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's okay. That's okay. And that's fine with me. But we have an environment now where the news media, politicians, and you've got big business as well, are all on the same page, pushing the same agenda. And the one outlet that we have, and I want to kind of lead into what you do, the one outlet that we should have is the church's role in all this. And at first, the church kind of, to me, just remains silent. It's kind of like you do something, you do something, it's bad, and then you look up to dad or mom, and if they don't say anything, okay, I'll do that again.
Yep.
The church should have been there, and now where we are is, Gary, we're going to have to take a break here shortly. Yeah, you can answer this after the break. Can the church still make a difference? And if so, how? BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson. This is your last call. We're on with Gary Michael Voris.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we're back with Gary Michael Voris. Gary, I went to Wikipedia and I love
the bastion of truth.
Yes. For unbiased opinions. Some critics of Voris within the Catholic Church, from Pennsylvania to Spain to Detroit, have said that his remarks at times promote division and extremism. Others critics Voris have said he uses rumors and suggestions of a kind of guilt by association to slander priests and bishops. But the one that really got my attention and got my respect for you is the Southern Poverty Law Center. Included church militant St. Media list of the LGBT hate groups, which you were a large part of, which means you're doing the right thing. And you're being effective. Okay, so what about the church? I was talking on earlier about the church leadership needing to acknowledge that we have a problem in America, and that problem in America is that we're an amoral, an unjust nation. The only way to do that is to make the church great again. There's obstacles. We need to overcome them. Prayer is important, but action, the Bible's full of action characters. Where are we in that role, Gary? How do you see that?
If I could just follow up very quickly on that Wikipedia thing, that I consider all of those comments about me and our work in Detroit, I consider all of those things compliments and acclamations. They don't.
Me too. Me too. That's what I like. I like that.
My father used to say, Gary, when you die, Jesus is not going to ask you for a list of your friends. He's going to ask you for a list of your enemies. And you got to have the right enemies on your list.
Amen.
So,
Amen.
I was like, okay. So, I think, look, when we're talking about church, I'm a word guy, and I think it's helpful to know what words mean. When we talk about church vis-a-vis Protestantism versus Catholicism, I'll do a little assessment of both of these. Protestantism, because of the way it's sort of oriented, has a ground up or grassroots, coming up type of thing. So there isn't this is the Pope of Protestantism and here's the Protestant Vatican. So there isn't a way to sort of approach from the top down. There are certainly individual leaders in their individual churches and congregations, and maybe when some of them band together, like for example the Southern Baptist Convention or the ELCA with the Lutherans or something like that. But still, there's kind of a spirit, I suppose you could say, within Protestantism that if somebody from the top down tries to tell you something and you don't like it or you don't agree with it or whatever it is, you're like, well, screw you, I'm going to go start my own church or go across the street to this one. So there's a kind of the denominators, exactly. So so a question on the Protestant side is, how do you get to that where it's really kind of a ground level thing? Move over to Catholicism and you have the exact opposite. You have a hierarchical structure because the Catholics believe, based on Bible stuff and everything, that Christ established a hierarchy, made Peter the head and all his bishops and apostles and bishops and successors and all that. And they are the ones who sort of dictate the flow of things. So if you're the devil and you want to get at Christianity at large, baptized Protestants as well as Catholics, your strategy, if you're Satan, has to be kind of a bit goofy. It might appear contradictory at first. So you have to get to individuals over here, some key individuals, but individuals who have some sort of influential ability, the pastors, but there's a heck of a lot more going on here. So as you rightly pointed out, the sexual revolution, where did the sexual revolution begin? It began with Protestants in 1930 with the Church of England. I know the Church of England would sort of hold itself out and say, we're not Protestant, we're Anglican, but my point is not Catholic. It began over here with the Lambeth Conference in 1930. I mean, we're 6 years away from just 100 years of birth control and contraception being viewed as acceptable for the first time in 2,000 years of Christian history. And if you get into, we probably don't have a lot of time to get into all of this, but that was largely pushed through the eugenics movement and the Rockefellers and the whole bit, who kept coming back to the Lambeth Conference, which is sort of the governance of the Church of England as far as policy and theology and religion and all that sort of stuff. And they tried in 1910, they meaning the Rockefellers, tried in 1910 by funding it and going into individual bishops to get them to vote in favor of contraception. It got shot down in 1910. It got shot down in 1920. In 1930, it passed by a little bit. And for the first time in Christian history, people who were baptized with mitres, bishops' hats on their heads, gave a kind of hesitatingly maybe approval to contraception. Once they did that, it took off.
Yeah.
When you move, it's interesting that one of the most erudite encyclicals, in my opinion, ever written, encyclicals just Latin Greek for letter, from the Pope was at the time Pope Pius IX. When that happened in the Church of England, he wrote a letter condemning it, and his letter in Latin is Casti Connubii, and he's saying, no, you cannot separate the procreative act from the procreation dynamic from the sexual act. You're going to run into just complete meltdown of society. He wrote that within months of the Church of England doing that. And well, hello, here we are. Move forward, and what do? You get the Supreme Court in 1968, I believe it was, approving contraception, and the Eisenstadt case, and I think it was 69 or 70, approving that it's not just okay for married couples; it's good for everybody. Everybody do it. The right to privacy, and then of course, a few years later, you get the right to privacy and abortion. So you start to see the meltdown because of flaws in Protestant theology dating back to 1930 to that Lambeth Conference. Now, switch over to the Catholic Church. What happens here? When when Pope Paul VI in 1968 issues his encyclical condemning birth control, contraception, there's this uproar in the church with all of these liberal theologians who are saying, no, the Pope is wrong. The teaching is wrong. That's wrong. This is wrong. We, the people, the Holy Spirit is moving us to, have all kinds of, illicit sex and everything because, hey, you've got this is how it works. It's the people. It's like some kind of bizarre Democratic Republic approach to, what's sin and what's not. I mean, if that's the way the universe runs and God wants it, well, sign me up for that religion. I mean, you get to determine what's sin and what's not. That sounds fun. But that's not the way it is, and we know that. So lots of the bishops at the time, certainly here in the United States, were just weak men. They had ingratiated themselves into the culture. They liked the idea, because remember some of the psychology at work here. For the most part, in the 1960s and 70s, and actually up until relatively recently, most of the hierarchy, Catholic hierarchy in the United States, has been Irish. It was big Irish. The Irish had the advantage in all of the waves of the Catholic immigrants that came over here for the span of about 50 years, because the Irish kind of spoke the language, and they heavy dialect, of course, but they could come in here and immediately get the jobs in law enforcement and fire departments and all those sorts of things. That's why there's such an Irish presence in those particular things. We joined the military, so there was this always kind of higher acceptance. Although it was still pretty low, there was within the Protestant America, there was an acceptance more of Irish Catholics because of their ability to speak the language. We got insulted, and the Know Nothing Party went after us in the 1920s and all that and everything. And because of that, there's also a rising up in the ranks of Irish bishops, Irish clergy, priests who become bishops, and they sort of form the hierarchy. They liked the idea of being embraced and accepted, and, oh, look at us, and, oh, we're wonderful, and, the culture loves us. And I always, whenever I think of the American hierarchy, I always think of that. I can't remember who the actress was, but she got up on stage at the Oscars and she won, and she was breaking down and having a crying, emotional moment. She's like, you love me, you really love me. That's what I think of when I think of the American hierarchy. They love the embrace, the embrace of the world. They like their place at the table. So they never really challenged any of this. And it's very interesting. There was an interview probably about 10 or 15 years ago with Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who, because it was in 2009, shortly after he'd been named Archbishop of New York. 15-ish years ago. It was an NBC interview, and he said, we bishops talking about himself and the rest of the hierarchy, because he's a cardinal. I mean, kind of hard, and you're like that far away from being pope. And he said, we bishops got laryngitis on the issue and the teachings of sexual morality. I heard that, and I was watching the interview live. It was on Meet the Press, and I was like, oh, hey, maybe there's some hope. Here's like an awareness on the part of the hierarchy, the Catholic hierarchy, that something's going to change. And, hey, they finally have woken up, and, 60 million dead babies later, and shattered families, and, horrible, emotional illness coming from fatherless homes, and on and on and on. I mean, just the carnage that has flowed from the sexual revolution, and that the Protestantism in general, of course, not every Protestant, prepared the way for this by saying, oh, look, there are all these various Protestant, bishops and leaders and things are saying it's okay. And, they viewed it that way. There are very few Protestant congregations today that have as their official teaching that you cannot practice any form of birth control. There are very few Protestant denominations that teach that. Move over here, to the Catholic side, you have, that's the teaching of the Catholic Church. Nothing's changed in 2,000 years, but the bishops shut up about it, and they let the influence from the culture get over here into the people in the pews, which is why there was this big rebellion when Pope Paul VI said, nope, no birth control. So I can't speak because I don't have enough on the ground working knowledge on the Protestant side, but I can tell you on the Catholic side, there's something of a culling of the herd. Catholics who accept the church's teaching and point to the biblical foundations of it and what the apostles taught. I mean, many people may not know the apostles wrote a book. A manuscript was assembled in the first century called the Didache, Didache. It's Greek for teaching. And in that book, the Didache, is all the apostles' teaching. And right smack there on page 1, no abortion, no contraception. They didn't call it contraception, but whatever it was. You couldn't take all these herbs and all these spices and things to make sure that you wouldn't get pregnant. And it's right there. It just goes back to like the feet of Jesus. So Catholics who accept that are really beginning to kind of find each other and come together in various parishes and that sort of thing. And there is a resurgence in Catholicism of the intensity of, we got to believe what the church teaches. We've been influenced by the world way too much. On the Protestant side, again, that's not my wheelhouse, but the various Protestants that I've talked to are in agreement with that and saying, yeah, our pastors have betrayed us. They betrayed us on 1,000 different ways. They preached that this is okay. They promote it and all of that. And why is contraception such a big deal? Because it is the door open to abortion, gay marriage, everything. When you take, and you go back to Pope Pius IX's encyclical in response to what happened at Lambeth in 1930, when you take sex, which is given to us for procreation, and you uncouple that reality and have sex without the deliberately, or at least trying to have sex without having children, you just X through the procreative aspect. Well, what are you left with? You're left with just pleasure. Well, if you accept this theologically in Protestant circles and you ignore it in Catholic circles because of the bishops, and this becomes sort of your North Star, sex is okay. Don't have to worry about having kids. Matter of fact, if you do get pregnant, kill the kid. I mean, all of these things start to flow one from the other. And what do you wind up with? You wind up with the situation we're in now. I thought it was interesting during the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. They got that. The left, who's the guy that looks like Skeletor? Always the Connecticut senator, Broomfield, whatever his name is. I forgot his name at the moment. He nailed and went after, he didn't nail her on it, but he went after Amy on the contraception issue. I thought that was very telling. They get it. They understand if you roll back to contraception, all the rest of this stuff has to go away. Too bad too many, the evil demon-driven Democrats understand that, but Christians don't, or enough Christians don't. That's got to change. And it's
a lot of inconsistencies there, Gary.
Cultural change.
We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to start it with a definition. You used one in your monologue, so I'm going to use one in mine. And Gary, I appreciate what you're saying. It's just the next question is, okay, now what? We're all diagnosticians here. We know there's a problem. What do we do? BJ Edwards along with Mr. Anderson, your last call.
My values have not changed.
Reduce red meat specifically.
Yes.
The Boston Marathon bomber, they should be able to vote.
I think we should have that conversation.
Abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, and I'm in favor of banning fracking.
I am prepared to pass a Green New Deal.
I support a mandatory buyback program. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented cross borders criminals. The idea that more police equals more safety, that's just wrong.
Policing, as we know, goes all the way back to slave patrols and that idea.
Yeah, you are absolutely right.
Where do you stand on defund the police?
We need to take a look at these budgets.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should.
70 to 80% tax rate.
I think that's fantastic.
Chipping now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas?
Yeah, I am radical. I do believe that we need to get radical about what we are doing.
Keeping you informed. This is Last Call with BJ Edwards.
And we are back. Gary Michael Voris is our guest today. And Gary, the fact that she could possibly be a leader in our nation, it says an awful lot. It does. To get to where we need to get to, Gary, we need to be united. And that means the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and conservatives need to all be on the same page. The enemy is on the same page, but it's called hate. And it's a very wonderful weapon that they use. And Noah Webster, I'm going to talk about a holy war. And I'm going to refer to your interview with Arthur Clareau and Stephen Wynn this week. A war or violent campaign waged often by religious extremists for what is considered to be a holy purpose. And early on in the program, I advised everyone that the 1961 Supreme Court decision, Torcaso versus Watkins, stated secular humanism was declared as a religion. So we are in a religious war, but it seems like Christians and the church are in a civil war at the same time. How do we possibly get from point A to point B to get us back to the laws of nature and nature's God? Easy question, Gary. I'll give you a couple minutes.
Very simple. Wait, I got like 10 seconds, right? Good.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it's a question sort of the house divided.
Mm-hmm.
The left, I mean, maybe there's a little bit of division over there on how to implement a policy of total destruction of the country. Let's do this, let's do that. Their division, to the degree you could really point to division, leaving the Palestinian Gaza war thing out of it for the moment. They don't really have much division. Theirs is just, disagreements over tactics. Mm-hmm. Should we do this first or should we do that first? Should we do this in Pennsylvania or should we do it in Georgia? That's sort of what their thing is. But they are 100% locked in on the goal. And the goal is the destruction of America.
Yep.
And no one on that side disagrees with that. And they are committed to that goal, and that's it. Over here, the problems, and over here, I mean, the good guys, all of us, the problems are that there are philosophical differences on what exactly the goal should be. For example, what does make America great again mean?
Yep.
It's one of those kind of elastic things. And believe me, I mean, I'm as patriotic as you can get. My dad was in the Air Force. I grew up in the military. I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning as a little kid to watch the bicentennial across the country. America this, America that, all of it. I mean, I'm about as patriotic as a guy as you're ever going to meet. But when I hear "Make America Great Again," I know what that means to me, and that's the problem. It means something to me. It means something entirely different to another patriot. And we all agree, rah, rah, yeah, America. But America what? When you've got a substantial portion of MAGA people who they're not going to go out and like make donations to Planned Parenthood, and they're not going to go to a Planned Parenthood rally, but they're kind of like, well, I get it. And, I would never have an abortion, but well, then there's a division you got to fix. And then when you get to other questions of, contraception, for example, I'll bet you, I've never seen a poll, but, I'll bet you if you went down, 1,000 MAGA supporters and asked them, do you think contraception should be illegal or not, a resurrection of the Comstock laws? I'll bet you 900 or more would disagree with that and say, oh, no, contraception is fine. How about divorce and remarriage? You okay with that? Mm-hmm. Jesus says no. You okay with that? What about all the wrecked homes you cause and all the feelings of the kids and everything? You okay with that? So these are philosophical, which turn into theological differences on the right that make it difficult to unify, except on a very basic level, against these demons. And they are demons. I mean, these people are manifest child killers and child perverts, and they all in favor of cutting children's what's off, and and reading horrible crap to them and having drag queen crazies sitting there. I mean, all of it. Their father is the devil. You got to understand that.
Yeah.
Their father is the devil. And it is a holy war, because ultimately what we're talking about here is people's eternal salvation. This isn't just politics. Politics is just a means to an end. We're talking about here, you think the devil's in this so he can, he's doing all this perversion and mind twisting and emotion twisting around and everything so that he can have Kamala win? He doesn't give a crap who runs something. He just wants the system to be such that it creates misery. That's his goal: create misery, have people take their eyes off God so they're damned. That's his mission. They probably, for the most part, these people are atheists. They don't believe in the devil, but they are his pawns. Over here, we got to get this theology and this philosophy correct. And we don't have it correct right now. Nobody can say, I believe, I follow two guys. I follow Jesus Christ. So do I. I'm okay if a woman gets an abortion. I don't want one. I don't support one. But yeah, I understand. And the guy over here is like, are you crazy? That's killing a human being created in the image and likeness of God. Next topic. I'm okay with divorce and remarriage. No, Jesus explicitly teaches against it. As a matter of fact, if you were to pour through the Gospels, that would be probably tied for the number one teaching of his. No divorce and remarriage. It's a sacrament. He instituted it. His first miracle was performed at a wedding. He's God. He could have chosen whatever setting he wanted to perform his first miracle. He performed it at a wedding. And he reiterated that all the time. He said to them, Moses allowed you to do this out of the hardness of your hearts. But I, God, tell you something different. So you can't have a problem like that, a theological problem like that, based on errant philosophy, and expect that somehow you're going to be able to, unite around things. Well, what are you uniting around? MAGA? Yay, make America great again? Okay. Look, for a political campaign for the next 60 days, 59 days, whatever it is, let's go for it. They can't win. If they win, it's lights out, country's over. It's done, period, which was their goal all along for the last 100 years. And they will have won. But they will have won because over here, people don't have a correct apprehension of theology and philosophy, and shame on the Protestant leaders who have profited off of that, and the Catholic leaders who have kept their mouths shut about that. You can't do it. There's one Lord, one faith, one baptism. That's it. And you don't get to disagree on what Jesus taught about this or that, and, oh, this is negotiable and that's not. What exactly did the Son of God come down to earth and say that's negotiable? Negotiable by who? Whose authority? Who gets to say, well, he didn't really mean that, he meant this? That's the problem on the right, that there is too much disagreement We've never, ever, and Satan's exploited quite literally the hell out of this disagreement. It's never been nailed down here in America. And, when you become a world power, goodness gracious, if I'm Satan, I want America, at least at some point in the timeline. I want America to be a world power, because I can infiltrate them, and I can call, pornography art because of the First Amendment, because there's a wrong apprehension philosophically and theologically of what free speech is. All of this. It's I don't know. Honest to God, I don't really know. Can we have this discussion now, 95 years or whatever it is, kind of after the fact, when so many people who claim to be followers of Christ have actually accepted so much of the devil's agenda? They wouldn't look at it that way and like, oh, I'm in favor of, child sacrifice. But that's what it is, buddy. That's what it is. And if you can't come to terms with that, don't walk around and parade yourself as a follower of Christ, because you ain't. And anybody who's an authentic follower of Christ and his authentic teachings understands you're not. And quite frankly, you're a hindrance to our side.
But Gary, that's your opinion.
Some of the lie.
That's your opinion, and that's the way you see the Bible. But I can think about 47,000 different Protestant denominations and 50 or 100 or 90 different Bibles that we use.
Sure.
And that is crazy. What I do, Gary, and I'll make the suggestion to you is I use the laws of nature and nature's God. When I came to the knowledge of the truth of Jesus Christ by trying to prove the Bible wrong. And the only thing I was doing was trying to prove nature wrong. Because I would read a verse and I go, I'll look out in nature and I'll go, okay, I think I see a problem here. But when I really examined it, I found a truth, a natural law. And I really like to push the natural law aspect when I get into conversations with folks, whether they be Christians, Catholics, doesn't make any difference, or non-Christians. I always use natural laws.
Absolutely.
As like speaking in tongues, if you will, because I got the conversation with a gay couple one time and they said, well, you're trying to beat us over the head with the Bible. I'm going, whoa. I never used a Bible verse once. Your problems is with nature. Deal with it. And the conversation was over with. But we're going to have to let you go shortly. Before you do go, Gary, and thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
How can we help you? What kind of information do you want to give to our audience? Contact information, or what can we do to help you, sir?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. Thank you very much for your listeners, still around, paying attention.
I think one may have a question for you. One may have a question for you.
Sure,
so
go ahead.
You take off.
Sure. I would say that our Souls and Liberty is the operation that I work for. It's established here in Houston. It's an approach to the culture that understands the coming together of souls, spirituality with liberty, freedom, how we operate in the material world. So it's got an immaterial and material weave, as it were, to it. And that's the perspective or the prism we look out on everything through.
Amen.
Soulsandliberty.com.
Thank you, sir. Norm, you have a question and comment?
Well, I have a comment. Gary, I want to thank you for what you do, but I want to comment on the contraception. One of my best friends, he's a good bit younger than I am. He's in early 50s, and I was their Sunday school teacher for several years. And they came to me many years ago, and they just felt like God did not want them using contraception. And they went on to have 8 kids. They're a farm family, and I don't know of any family that has been blessed more than this family. Like I said, he's in his early 50s. He's accumulated, I think, about 1,300 acres of farmland. It's probably worth $5, $6, $7 million. They've got a beautiful home with probably 4,000 square feet, and it's just a joy to be around them. And as the older ones have gotten married, their spouses has come in and working on the farm, and they raised, I think they had 250 acres of watermelons this year, 100 acres of squash. They've got cattle, they've got soybeans and corn, and 5 acres of strawberries. They grow greenhouses for plants and tomatoes, and it's just amazing to watch what God has done with his family. And I believe it's all because of their faithfulness, in that area. And a lot of people, even in our Sunday school class, like, well, no, y'all can't do that, but they did. And but just a testimony to God's goodness. But thank you very much.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Thank you very much, Norm. I appreciate it. That's great insight. So let me know where they are so I can go buy some watermelons.
What really upsets me, Gary, is those folks that are in their 30s and 40s now that don't want to have children, and you haven't really experienced life or love until you've had a child. I thought I was smart. I thought I had it all together. Then God gave me a child or two, and it's like, I am a dummy. And I really didn't know what love was. I didn't know what love was either until I had those children. It's an emotional, a heartfelt thing that you cannot describe. You have to experience that, and that just drives me crazy.
That's the way God. His very first command God gave: be fruitful and multiply to us. Be fruitful and multiply. We're made in the image and likeness of God. And, when you think about it from like a contraception standpoint, what do? You're going against conception. Well, that's a sacred act, and you're sticking your will in there, preventing, because God allows it. He could work around it if he wanted to, but God allows this couple to exercise their free will that he has given them. Now they're choosing evil, but he allows them to do that so that, and in the process, they prevent him from creating a human being he would want to create. That's a pretty dastardly. Imagine standing in front of God saying, hey, when it comes time to being judged, and he says, hey, here's 12 human beings I wanted to create, but because I gave you your free will and you exercised it the way you wanted to, these 12 beings never came into being. These 12, babies, humans who would grow into adults and do X, Y, and Z and whatever, they never came to be because you prevented it. Wow. That's going to be a tough. Where do you look when the Son of God says that to you at your judgment seat, at his judgment seat? That's not really kind of cool.
Got one more comment coming in, and we're going to have to let you go. Go ahead, JC.
Sure. Thank you.
Hey, it's been good. I've been in and out of here in my office listening, heard parts of it, but what I've heard is really good. I appreciate what you're doing, Gary, and the message you're putting out there. But, it's
Thank you, JC. Appreciate it.
A little bit ago, I thought about it. It's like, if we don't have unity in the churches, you were just talking about that, then like Pastor Bill's always said, America will get the president they deserve. And I always tell him every election cycle, I said, will you quit saying that? He's like, JC, I just got to give you the truth. It's like,
that's true. We are this close to getting the president we deserve. What are we doing? We're asking God to give us we're asking for God's mercy. We don't want God's justice. And what's the theological definition of justice? Giving somebody what somebody deserves, what's due them. We're due her. Mercy is when God withholds what is due to you. We need God's mercy this election. Don't ever pray for God's justice.
Judgment's coming. So, just on a side note, David Arthur is going to be here in the garage Tuesday night. He's coming to Ohio. So, and JR can tell real quick who David is, standing against the LGBT stuff. He was in it 25 years, but he'll be here in the church in the garage Tuesday night at 6. Anybody local wants to stop in.
Thank you.
Excellent. God bless you guys. God bless all you guys for your work and your, we're hanging on to a republic, as Benjamin Franklin said. Let's hope in 59 days or whatever, we're able to overcome the cheating and the lying and the demonic activity. Pray for God's mercy on America.
We're going to thank you very much, Gary. We're going to take a quick break and come back. I'll kind of round all this up. Gary, I really appreciate your heart, what you're doing, and the fact that you've dove into water, you're swimming upstream, and it's an interesting but a very enlightening exercise. Very enlightening. Yeah. Thanks again, sir.
It certainly is. Thank you very much, BJ. God bless. God bless you guys also for your comments.
Last call with BJ Edwards. Real talk about real life.
Very knowledgeable young man. Yeah, I can say that. Very knowledgeable young man. There's so much I wanted to get into. That interview he had on that site that you're showing up there. I think it was on September 4th, and it was Arthur Colereau and Stephen Wynn. Very interesting conversation, and we are in spiritual warfare, folks. And the thing that I'm concerned about is I really think we are in a civil war, a religious civil war, and we need to resolve that. Otherwise, we're going to get what we deserve very soon. I don't know what God has in plan for us. You know, we can pray, but if we tie God's hands, I mean, what can we expect? I mean, we break all his natural laws. We don't do anything. We turn our heads the other way from abortion or from child molestation, from public education, and go into churches and sing Kumbaya and get in touch with our God feelings. And then we pray to God that he'll save this nation. And God's scratching his head going, you know the rules, right? You know what works, you know what doesn't work. And I'll go back to one simple solution for it isn't the answer. But one simple solution is pushing that natural family concept. One biologically born man, one biologically born woman. We can stop there. Okay, that means one biologically born woman, one biologically born man, and a lifelong, not 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out, no fault divorce, a lifelong, committed, monogamous. By the way, that's not just during marriage, that's before marriage. Doesn't happen very often, or often enough. But that alone is a bond that helps strengthen that marriage with their children, biological or adopted. All of those are strength issues for any nation. And whenever you allow the family, the three-legged stool, you've got the place of family in society, the content, which I just mentioned, one man, one woman, and the structure. And that is a vertical relationship. It is God, Jesus Christ, our creator, Jesus Christ, man, woman, children, a vertical relationship. Children learn authority. The problems we're having in this nation right now, a lot of them, children don't respect authority. Well, they don't get it in the family. Everybody's on an equal basis. Mom, dad, children, government, businesses, whoever. There is no leadership, so they can go out and do whatever they want to do. It's okay. I'm a leader. I can take charge of this. And then the place of the family in society. In today's world, the state is the daddy. And if you need something, you don't feel good about this, you don't feel good about that, the state will take care of you. And we ingrain that in our children at a very early age. We talked about the shooting where four people were killed. And we talked about the trans shooter. If we, as a nation, had a vision of the natural family and we stuck to that, how much of this would we avoid? I think a tremendous amount. A tremendous amount. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Anderson. We really, we can look at this as a problem or an opportunity. We have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to share with folks, neighbors, family, that obviously are confused. Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
I just want to encourage people to go to the website. I'll put it up again for Gary and watch some of those videos. He has a lot to share, and he is a strong speaker. And as I watched some of those videos, I thought, well, we're getting a real tough guy, and I appreciated him being on here. I'd like to hear him again sometime. As we close out, I wanted to play a special. Well, I don't know if I want to call it special. A video that I picked up just at the last minute last night.
Okay.
As I was going through some things. If you're familiar with Russell Brand, and if you've heard of his conversion, and he's with Tucker Carlson on stage, and I just wanted to play this video, this prayer that he prays for our country, and just food for thought. You know, are people coming around? Is this happening? Is this real? I don't know. But I put this out there, and we can, you can be the judge.
Go for it.
So as we close out, I'll share this. Some feedback. Okay, here we go.
I call on the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, our Heavenly Savior. Lord, humbly in this great congregation in Phoenix, Arizona, with my host, Tucker Carlson, in deference to him, but in ultimate deference to you, our Lord and Savior, to whom we are all your younger siblings and your children. I pray in your name that the forthcoming election be an opportunity for unity for America and for Americans, for forgiveness and for grace. That the dark and demonic forces that appear to operate at the level of the state, the deep state, and the corporate and global world experience your light, Lord, that we are guided, that you guide all of our tongues and all of our words and all of our hearts, that we feel your forgiveness and that we feel your grace. Thank you, Lord, for the many gifts that you have bestowed upon us. Thank you for the glory of consciousness itself in which we can experience you and live you. Thank you for the beauty of nature in which we see your wisdom and your creativity and your infinite glory. Thank you, Lord, for the many leaders, and thank you, Lord, that you were born and died that we may be forgiven and that we may have eternal life, not through merit or anything that we have individually achieved, for surely all of us are fallen, but in your holy name we are forgiven by your act of redemption, by your sacrifice. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Russell Brand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Join us next week for Last Call with BJ Edwards.